Let's talk first of all about this stalling, as we're hearing about, of the Russia offensive around Bakhmut. What are the key points there?
The main point is that this Russian offensive has been going since January, and they've thrown an awful lot at it. But what Russia seems to be going now, the UK MOD has deployed, it looks like the Russians are redeploying their forces, what they call euphemistically to stabilise the front line. In effect, it means in the defence. They're looking as if they're doing up to the north of Crimea, down to the south there, Avdiivka, just next to you there, all the way up to Bakhmut. Now, it's worth remembering that the Russian offensive was really started earlier than they probably would have wanted to. The weather is bad, etc. They threw, probably though it's out of fear and anticipation of the Ukraine spring offensive, Western tanks and everything on their way. They threw 300,000 inexperienced soldiers at the fight, wave after wave, in a sort of 20th century form of highly attritional warfare. They've taken huge casualties, they've stalled, and by any metric, the Russians have made very, very limited progress. And so now it's an opportunity to just pause, consolidate the gains they've made and prepare for whatever may come in the spring.
And, I mean, a couple of weeks ago, we were saying quite often, oh, Bakhmut's going to fall within a matter of days or a week at least. Why didn't that ultimately happen?
We talked so much, it's 7 months we've been talking about Bakhmut. I mean, from a military perspective, it's not a significant attack, but it's become incredibly symbolic, with Russia, particularly President Putin, wanting to win. Now, at the moment, the Russians have got to the east of the Bakhmut River. The Ukrainians have got to the west. There's a route just by your hips there, which is the 504 access route, and the pincers were coming around to try and cut off Ukrainian resupply. But the reason it's not fall, I think there's three main reasons, one of which is this is urban warfare, fighting in a built-up area. It massively favours the defence, and you generally have 3 times as many casualties on the offence. And that's when you use experienced warfighters. The Russians have been using very inexperienced cannon fodder. They've lost 7-to-1 casualty rate. So 30,000 soldiers, by all accounts, have been lost in this one city alone. Second reason, the Wagner Group were part of the lead for this. They were under Yevgeny Prigozhin. They were making some progress. But as they made progress, Yevgeny became quite critical of the Russian army, but also about Putin. In an effort to try and manage that, Putin stopped him recruiting from the prisons and also stopped him having access to ammunition. And Valery Gerasimov took over Russian army. They also didn't want him claiming credit for seizing Bakhmut. The trouble is, when the army took over, it all stalled again. So the clash of egos going on here, Russian egos, has thoroughly compromised and distracted away from main effort. And the third reason that Bakhmut's not fallen is an absolutely heroic Ukrainian defence. The city has been devastated. Even the US, both military and political, were suggesting to Zelensky, you need to withdraw your experienced fighters out, ready for the battles to come. Zelensky did the opposite. He reinforced the city, and that seems to have worked, at least for now.
So stepping back, bigger picture, Sean, for the weeks ahead for the entire war, what are you focused on?
Well, the Russian offensive has failed, huge casualties, lost a load of tanks as well, and it's going to take a while to regroup. They've now got 1,200 kilometres of front line, and even if you spread out Russian soldiers, 200,000 of them across evenly, it's only 1 every 6 metres, the sort of width of this studio. That's not strength in depth. So they have to work out where Ukraine's going to attack, when they're going to attack, and how they're going to attack. And the main thing there, I think, there's 3 main areas from a military analyst. One will be, if you remember that yellow areas where the Ukrainians very successfully managed to counterattack, if they pushed there. The second one is around Bakhmut to actually start to take back some of the ground there. And the third area is in this corridor here. Obviously, the water acts as a barrier, but from Zaporizhzhia all the way across to the Donetsk region, if they were to sever the land bridge there, that would be the other reason. But regardless of how successful any spring offensive would be, it will run out of steam eventually because logistics limits it. And by the end of the summer, most analysts believe that this whole conflict will have ground to a bit of a halt. The front line may have moved a bit, but that's when international pressure will ramp up to try to find some way of getting a ceasefire and find some way of evolving how you bring peace and bring this war to a close.